Game week 6 has proved to be an absolute disaster, and it looks like my hand is going to be forced to activate my wildcard tonight. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about my transfer plans, importantly why it looks like my wildcard is going to need to be activated, and of course talk about all of the key players that you need to buy. So as always, if you're not already, make sure you are subscribed to the channel, and of course hit that like button on this video, aiming for 300. Enough waffling. Let's get into today's video. First up, a quick review on how Game Week 5 has gone so far. It's worth noting, I am recording this in the 70th minute of the Man City-Arsenal game, where they are currently winning 1-0. So we've had the assist from Reinders, the goal from Erling Haaland, and that is basically all I know right now. So this might change the landscape, but as of right now, it's a stinker. 36 points all out, and it's safe to say we have got some horrendous scores to talk about. Kicking things off with a certain Robert Sanchez getting -3 points. Why did he choose to take out that guy in the 4th minute of the game and basically ruin everything for us FPL managers? The decision there was a 7-point swing between the 4 of Dubravka and starting Sanchez at -3. You can't predict these things, but of course, now that makes Sanchez an issue because even though he will be available for Game Week 7, because he'll serve as one match ban during one of the cup games, I think that he is a risk of getting dropped in general. Of course, Maresca has come out and stated before that Sanchez is at risk of rotation. So that firstly is a huge red flag in the team. In terms of the defenders, unfortunately, Murillo missed out. The 4 points of a Steve came in as the auto sub. We're hoping Murillo will be back, of course, next weekend against Sunderland. But with them playing in the Europa League midweek, I don't think this Forest team are necessarily going to be all at the races for that Sunderland game off the back of the Europa League. So another reason why owning Forest right now isn't really ideal. Porro with the 1 point and Anderson ticking over with those defensive contributions. In terms of the midfielders, Mo Salah looked a bit better first half, but to be honest with you, still not really getting in those goal scoring opportunities that we saw last season. Bruno Fernandes with a 10-pointer. Amazing what a defensive midfielder can do. Still love him as a pick right now, and I plan to keep him even if I wildcard. Reinders currently on 6 points. Maybe by the time we finish this, he's either been sent off or he's scored. Who knows with this game week right now. And then, I don't really want to talk about them, but double Aston Villa of Rodgers and Watkins. This has been one of the worst choices I think I've ever made in FPL. I didn't see this coming with Aston Villa, how poor they have been. For them to go down to 10 men Sunderland, Villa go 1-0 up and still draw the game 1-0, there are some serious problems with this team. Rodgers looking a shadow of himself. Watkins just not looking himself. We're in a situation right now of Aston Villa where they have Fulham and then Burnley. You could definitely make the case to say, you know what, eventually it's going to click. But is it really? Is his time done, Unai Emery, at Aston Villa? And this is a big reason why, even though I want to get Erling Haaland in, I got other problems in my team that might make me have to use the wild card. Chris Wood off on the 60th minute. I do think Igor Jesus is going to keep taking minutes from him. And João Pedro, I still think is a good pick. So 36 points. The only good thing is I rolled the transfer to give myself some flexibility for Game Week 6. Let me know in the comment section how many points you scored. Let's take a look at my current Game Week 6 team and why my finger is over that wildcard button. So before I panic and activate my wildcard, I need to actually take a second, take a breath, and have a look what my team actually looks like going into Game Week 6. Does this team actually need a wildcard? Because it is one of the most powerful chips in the game. So we've got to make sure if we're using it, it's for the right reasons. So first up, it's worth noting, with the game this season, of course, you can roll your transfers through a wildcard. So now I've got 2 free transfers in Game Week 6. If I wildcard this game week, I will come back to 2 free transfers in Game Week 7. Whereas in previous seasons, a long time ago, once you use your wildcard, it kind of defaults back to 1 transfer. So remember that, and why using the wildcard now is fine, because you still got these 2 free transfers in the bank for later on to be a little bit aggressive with certain moves. So take a look at the team. Sanchez, I still think is a problem. I think Chelsea are still a bit dodgy and suspect defensively, and I think his minutes could be at risk. And then going into Game Week 6, I might have Dubravka away against Man City. Not ideal at all. In terms of the back 3, I think it's perfectly fine. Double Spurs against a Wolves team that are really struggling right now, and Murillo, if he's available at home against Sunderland, that is not a problem at all. I'm perfectly fine with that as an option. Even on the bench, Anderson away against a Villa team that don't score, is fine for defensive contributions. In terms of the midfielders, Mo Salah is a topic in himself because, of course, going into game week 6 with Erling Haaland at home against Burnley, that is a fixture that I just feel like I cannot not have Erling Haaland in. So as part of a transfer strategy, the only way I can get to Haaland is selling Mo Salah and selling one of my forwards in order to enable Erling Haaland. So even though I like the look of Salah possibly, I can't keep him if I want to own Erling Haaland. That is just the end of it, really. Reinders fantastic. Bruno Fernandes I'm happy with. Rodgers has to go. He has to go. Now again, could I keep him for Fulham at home? 100%. He might eventually click, but is he also at risk of maybe just not starting a game? He hasn't exactly lit the world alight, and while he is the 90-minute man that we first thought, he did come off in today's game, and I do think if we continue to see these performances, we are actually seeing Morgan Rodgers as a bit of a rotation risk, which we haven't seen so far in the last 2 years. When we look at this front three, Chris Wood, even though that's a fantastic game, Europa League midweek, Igor Jesus stealing minutes from each and every game, that is a problem, and he's got to be sold from game week 7 onwards regardless. João Pedro at home against his old club, fine, and Watkins, the man who literally doesn't take shots. So there's a lot of problems. Sanchez, we've got Rodgers, Watkins, Chris Wood, and then in terms of the bench, it is what it is. So I can make 2 transfers. Salah down to Semenyo, and then I could do Chris Wood up to Erling Haaland, and I can roll the dice once again and pray that Aston Villa actually deliver something in game week 6. But what I want to show you right now is a few pros and cons for a wildcard, and then of course my actual wildcard draft and why I'm just very tempted to go there. So just to kind of like collect my thoughts here, just to make sure that you guys are aware of what I'm thinking right now, here's a few pros and cons of a wildcard in general and kind of specific to myself right now. So first up, the pros of actually doing the wildcard. I get to sell my Villa players. Even if they do come good against Fulham, I just don't think we have any confidence that they actually will. So selling the Villa players, fantastic. Getting rid of Chris Wood because I just do think he is a minute's risk. I wouldn't even be surprised if Igor Jesus starts against Sunderland. An opportunity for Ange to give him a start that maybe he does deserve. And then, of course, getting rid of Robert Sanchez, where I do believe he could be a minute's risk. He is really not the goalkeeper that Maresca wanted. He came out in pre-season and said he wants a new goalkeeper. They couldn't get it for him. It's an easy way for me to move from Salah to Haaland. Now, of course, as I said, I've got the 2 free transfers in order to do so. So it isn't the only way I can get to Erling Haaland, but it's an easy way of getting there using this wildcard. Big thing, I get to keep these 2 free transfers in the bank for later on, so I can use the wildcard in game week 6, 2 transfers available in 7, and going forward. So that is a really, really powerful position to be in. And maybe the biggest thing here is that if I use my wildcard, I avoid all the big, huge price changes, because we're going to see Haaland go up in price, Senesi go up in price, Semenyo probably go up once again, Rodgers inevitably is going to go down in price, Watkins will go down in price. If I try and postpone my wildcard up until game week 8, the players that I know I kind of want regardless, whether it be 6 or 8, could be nearly $1 million more expensive combined once we take into account the price drop of my players and the increase of the others. So that's why I think the wildcard is probably more beneficial this week, because the team from 6 to 8 probably looks very similar. In terms of the issues of a wildcard, it's a tough entry point for Arsenal assets against Newcastle. Newcastle away, very difficult. Arsenal, I don't love that fixture. I don't back them necessarily for a guaranteed clean sheet, but you would be bringing them in just thinking they're here for the long term, and that's kind of why they are in. Then, of course, Salah to Haaland can be done with 2 free transfers for my team, so it begs the question, is the wildcard actually necessary? And my game week 6 team looks fine. The problem is, of course, Villa are just looking so bad. I think when we take into account that, then we start to ask the question, oh, is it actually maybe the Villa players that are truly forcing this wildcard? And if that is the case, is that enough of a reason to really use the wildcard? So let's take a look at this wildcard draft. Let's see what we're thinking. Also, what I haven't mentioned as a problem with using my wildcard in game week 6 is it doesn't allow me to actually use the triple captain either on Erling Haaland against Burnley. So while the wildcard is fantastic, it will resolve a lot of problems, I also was kind of earmarking this fixture as one that I can actually triple captain Haaland, because I think that's the standout fixture. Using the wildcard, you can't use another chip, so it is worth noting that. Apologies, I didn't put that on that section here. So taking a look at a Game Week 6 wildcard draft here. Firstly, I need to note the players that actually would remain, because it ain't a lot. We'll be keeping Dubravka, because I still think he's a good pick in a Burnley team that are showing themselves at home to be capable of keeping out tough teams. So I do think clean sheets actually still are a thing for Burnley, so he's a good backup to have in this team. We will be keeping, outside of that, Anderson. Still think he's the best 4.5 million defender. Fulham are good, and he is so good for defensive contributions. We'll be keeping Bruno Fernandes, so that'll be our third player. We'll be keeping Reinders, and we'll be keeping João Pedro. And even then, I don't know if João Pedro absolutely would make this wildcard team. So I'll be keeping 5 players out of 15. That in itself kind of shows the level that my team is at right now. Yes, I think Spurs defenders are fine. You could possibly use them in a wildcard team. But as I said, I think this team is better. And I think it's better prepared for future game weeks. So this is how the Game Week 6 team would look. It's not ideal owning double Arsenal away against Newcastle. However, I do think long term, we are just putting them in with the understanding that this is the best defence in the league, and long term, you know you're going to want them. Look at these fixtures. Newcastle, tough, but then West Ham, Fulham, Palace, Burnley, Sunderland, Spurs, Chelsea, Brentford, Aston Villa. The fixtures long term are incredible. Now, the downside of going for double Arsenal defence is that you can't really flip it to double Arsenal attack at any point. But I do believe right now in this Arsenal attack, still not seeing the signs to suggest that I need to force double Arsenal attack in with other good attackers in this game. So for that reason, going to lean towards double Arsenal with Raya and Gabriel. Again, I don't know who the other Arsenal defender could be, Gabriel, Saliba, Calafiori, but I think Gabriel is just nailed on. Neither are good for defensive contributions, Saliba or Gabriel. So I lean towards Gabriel just for a bit of nostalgia with those attacking threats from corners. Now it's going to be all about defensive contribution monsters, because that is what it is all about this season. So we're going to go for Tarkowski. I know he's expensive at 5.5 million, but I do quite like having a defender alongside Gabriel who's quite expensive. It allows me to pivot if I want to. West Ham, Palace, City, Spurs, Sunderland, Fulham. Really good long-term fixtures. And once Branthwaite returns, I think that only enhances Everton's clean sheet odds. Senesi kind of speaks for himself, a monster when it comes to defensive contributions, and the fixtures remain pretty strong for them. And then alongside that, we've got Anderson and Richards. Again, Richards basically being the best value pick in that Crystal Palace defence. And while the fixtures aren't fantastic for Palace, he rotates quite well in this team. Next at the midfielders. Now, Bruno Fernandes, he has to be in this team because, as you can see, there's no Cole Palmer here. I can't put him in a Game Week 6 wildcard with the injury concerns that we do have about him. And we can't go Mo Salah because of the Erling Haaland situation. So, we've got to have somebody quite expensive, and that is going to be Bruno Fernandes. Now, I would like to have Bukayo Saka, and there is a world where Bukayo Saka would be in this draft, but it's identifying who the forward would be to downgrade Gyökeres. We'll come to that in a minute. Semenyo, I just think has to be in this team. I do think he's a frustrating player. I do think he's being possibly overrated by FPL managers, but Leeds, Fulham, Palace, Forest, still good fixtures long term, and if he is on penalties, it makes him such an incredible pick. Reinders, I think, still fantastic. A minutes monster. Got the assist in today's game against Arsenal. I think he's an easy choice at 5.6 million. And then we're going to go for Ndiaye at 6.5. Again, the Everton fixtures are good. I think he's good for minutes. And, of course, the penalty taker in that Everton team. And then we're going to go for Leeds' stats here. Now, he's put up good numbers. The fixtures are good, real long-term. And at 5 million, a real easy entry point for this team to be the budget enabler that we can effectively bench any week we want to. The front three consists of João Pedro, Erling Haaland, and Gyökeres. I don't think João Pedro is as locked as we need him to be. When I look at the fixtures coming up, good fixture, good fixture, good fixture here. But with the Champions League campaign and no other forward for Chelsea, I am concerned that João Pedro will suffer from fatigue in certain fixtures. I just think it is inevitable. And I don't think he is a number 9. I've said about this on the channel. I think he's a better 10 than that of a 9. So I don't think João Pedro is going to be as clinical as what other people are anticipating he will be. Haaland's locked in, of course, and Enquiries is one that I want to have in this draft for a long-term perspective. The thing that I mentioned is this. I would like to maybe downgrade one of these forwards in order to enable someone like Bukayo Saka in my squad. When I look at the forwards actually are readily available to us, Isak and Ekitike, I have no idea which one is the one to go for, so I'd rather avoid that. Mateta coming into some tough fixtures. Chris Wood, a massive minutes risk. Sesko would not touch that. Voldemada going into some fixtures, don't mind it, but again, I haven't seen enough to justify him as a pick. Colomwani, no. Richarlison, no. Strand Larsen still getting up to fitness, and Wolves are pretty terrible. The rest of the options don't really excite me. So even though I'd love Saka, I think this is where the 2 free transfers in the bank would play to my advantage. When we go into game week 7, team looks so strong here. Captaincy, of course, would not be on Ndiaye. It probably would be on Erling Haaland in this scenario. But with 2 free transfers in the bank, the plan would be to possibly roll the transfer here. And when we look at the fixtures, what don't I own? We'd have Semenyo for Fulham. No Spurs against Leeds, but I think that is a tough place to go. We got Arsenal for West Ham. We got Bruno for Sunderland. We got João Pedro for Liverpool. Not ideal. We got Everton against Palace, which is fine. No Newcastle. Maybe that is why Voldemada could be involved. And we don't have any Aston Villa against Burnley. But again, we can't paint this narrative that now all of a sudden Aston Villa are essential for Burnley. Unfortunately, we've got to make sacrifices, and right now everybody is laughing at people that have Aston Villa players. Maybe the narrative will be different in game week 7, but is that enough for me to keep my Villa players? I don't think it is. Then when we take a look at game week 8, again, what are the fixtures that I want to have? Well, I don't really want Aston Villa away against Spurs, so another reason why selling them probably makes a lot of sense. And I feel like with this draft, it covers off a lot of these big fixtures that really what we do want. And the team here also looks fantastic in the way that it does rotate in and out, knowing that we got 3 free transfers for flexibility whenever it is required. So to round it up, I think I am going to force my hand to wildcard tonight. I think the price changes are going to absolutely kill me. They are going to ruin my team. So I think the plan is to activate the wildcard and be aggressive. Bring in the players that I want, knowing that by the time of now to game week 6, I can, if I want to, flip my wildcard team and maybe move towards maybe one that has Bukayo Saka and a cheaper forward. I just think right now there's enough changes in this wildcard team to justify activating it. And I will update you guys on a post maybe on YouTube if I have clicked the button. But let me know in the comment section, what are you planning on doing? But if I do hit the wildcard, I think I'm going to land something like this. Yes, guys, okay, so that's going to wrap up today's video, looking at my Game Week 6 transfer plans and why the wildcard is looking very, very likely. As I said, let me know in the comment section, what are you planning on doing ahead of Game Week 6? Are you hitting that wildcard? Are you triple captaining Erling Haaland? I would love to know. And of course, if you did enjoy the video, please do consider dropping a like and of course, hitting that subscribe button if you haven't already. I'll see you in the next one. Have an amazing day. Take care. Cheers.